What will you do this week? Well, this week we're going to start getting into the rocks and some minerals. And so in this class, because we want to focus on the hazards, we're not going to go in depth into the rocks and minerals. If we're in a physical geology class where we kind of learned the nuts and bolts of geology, we would probably spend 5 weeks discussing different rock types, minerals, and things like that. But here, because we want to spend a lot more time looking at earthquake hazards, volcano hazards, landslide hazards, flooding hazards, we don't necessarily have the time, and to be honest, we don't need all of that information to be able to evaluate these hazards, but we do need some basics. So we're going to shorten our lectures on rocks, and we're going to do it in 2 different modules. This is the first one, and what we're going to do is break it up into, in this one, we're going to look at minerals, and then we're going to look at our first rock category, which is igneous rocks. So you have 2 things kind of to do in this main lecture material here. You'll have 2 PowerPoints, one that covers minerals and one that covers igneous rocks and processes. So we need to know a little bit about minerals because the properties of minerals kind of dictate the properties of the rocks because the minerals make up the rocks. So once again, we don't want to go into the gory details, but we have to know the basics, some properties of minerals and how they're kind of put together, and then how that helps determine how rocks behave. And igneous rocks in particular, because we're talking volcanoes when we talk about igneous rocks. So igneous rocks are any rock that forms from molten rock. And so their composition, what they're made of, their mineralogy is really important to determine how they build a specific volcano, even how they erupt. So certainly when we get to volcanoes, we will reference back to some of this information here. But so what I want you to do is go through each of the PowerPoints, and of course there's an overview video of each of the PowerPoints, so you can walk through that. And then we'll have a quiz that covers just the PowerPoint stuff here. And then for article, I'm just going to pick a particular rock. In this case, it's granite. So granite is one of the very common igneous rocks that we see. You might have those on your countertops in your kitchen or bathroom. And so instead of focusing on all of the stuff, because there's a lot of information in this module, we'll just focus on granite in particular, and that's what the article and article quiz would be about. And kind of for the same deal for the video, we're just going to focus on a component or a part of igneous rock. So you'll learn that there's 2 groups of igneous rocks, rocks that cool on the surface and rocks that cool inside the earth and never make it to the surface. That's what this video will cover, specifically just rocks that cool at depth, which we call intrusive igneous rocks, mean they formed inside the earth. Another term for them that you might read or see is plutonic igneous rocks. So once again, this video will just be covering that portion of igneous rocks, and that's what the quiz will be over. And then for the homework, I'm going to have you look at some mineral properties. And so what I want you to do is fill out this chart here that is asking you to identify some different mineral groups. So like everything, we put things in groups because it's easier to understand. And what I want you to do is pick out a mineral that fits into each of these groups and then give me some of the properties associated with that. Now these properties will be introduced to you in the lecture where we talk about mineral properties and different things about minerals. And so what I want you to do is kind of find some information for here. Now you can certainly just search the internet and look for some stuff for minerals, but I did put some links in the additional resource section page. So remember that usually there's an additional resource section page that you can look up if you want some more information about the content we are doing this week. But in particular, besides just learning about minerals in general, which is what this first link is, you can come down here, and I've put 2 links here that basically will give you a list of minerals that you can see images of, and then of course where you can get that information that I'm looking for. So geology.com will take you to a list, and this minerals.net is probably the the most useful tool for you, because in the homework I'm asking you to look at specific mineral groups, and so this will allow you to search by that. And so you can go and search for silicates. It'll give you a list of silicate minerals. You get to choose which one, and then you'll look for the properties that I'm asking you to do for that. So that's probably the best way to do the homeworks there. And then, of course, there is a lab component this week. It will cover the same material, minerals and rocks. Just remember that you'll need to kind of go through some of this content here. So there are a couple pages where it kind of introduces you or reintroduces you to rocks and minerals. And so there's a couple videos here that kind of talk about specifically rock ID. How do we identify things? And so you'll want to watch this, and it reviews some of the content from the lecture. There is an overlap here for sure, but some additional information is presented in the lab. So make sure you walk through the first couple pages before you take the lab itself, and that's this information here along with a chart that you're going to use in lab. And then, of course, when you get to the yes, I want to take the lab, please help me, there is a tutorial that specifically walks through the lab and helps you answer some of the questions that we're trying to get you to get through. Okay, so make sure you watch the little tutorial. That is a specific video that helps you with some content in the lab. You're going to be downloading some KMZ files, and you're going to be identifying some imagery, try to figure out what type of igneous rock or mineral that you have. All right, so there's quite a bit of content this week, so take your time, start early, ask lots of questions. So if you run into any problems, please don't hesitate to contact me, and have fun.